So here we have the picture again. So I start with creating a controller. The only thing the controller is going to do is pretty much just be able to, right now, accept the written trigger. So it gets the written trigger and it actually gets some kind of snap. I don't know what that is. It's a huge document that I'm getting from Firebase. So it's very Firebase specific right here. I could make that better and I will do that later. Then it's getting a context, again, very Firebase specific. Probably it shouldn't have been, but it is in my case right here. And then when I look at the Firebase right here, that's where all written is doing. The implementation is pretty much just converting that data into something that I can actually use inside my product service right here. So again, it's taking the data and making each of these before and after snaps. If you guys remember those, I'm converting those into products right here. So now I have two products. Now they're not just JSON objects or JavaScript objects. Now they're actually products in TypeScript. And I can then pass those products into the service, which then knows how to handle information when you're doing it right. And I'm also grabbing the product ID parameter. And that's the parameter that I'm getting from this part right here. I'm going to take that as well and convert it. And yes, there's actually places where you can improve this code further if you want to. And I'm going to look into that as we keep expanding on this idea right here. So now that my controller kind of took the data and converted it into something that's useful, if you guys consider it, that's actually the same thing your controller is doing right here. You have your product controller right here. And notice the job for the product controller is to take something, in this case, it's an HTTP request instead, and convert it into something that we can use, right? Exact same idea, but now we're just working with functions on Firebase and not a REST call in the REST API. So now we have the controller that sends something to the service. Let's go back to our code. Next step is we go to our product service, and the product service has a write function. And this is actually where the real logic is happening. This is actually where we have some real data-specific logic that you guys can dive into. So what do we have here? Well, we have the function is very, very simple now because it's actually pure TypeScript now. Notice there's nothing in here about Firebase or Firestore or anything like that. Nothing. Nothing about functions, nothing. It's just we have a string and two simple objects right here. And then in the end, we return a promise. Okay, so there's nothing in here that's Firebase specific. And that's extremely important again, because this is, if it was the clean architecture right here, this is the core of the architecture. This is what we can test. This is the service layer that we can go in and test. So let's try and have a look at what we have right here inside this method. We're getting a product ID, a product before and product after. And the first thing I'm doing is just I'm counting up times. Now this is just to show you some logic. It could be anything in here, but this is just to show you some kind of logic. And you'll notice right now, I might have an exception actually, because what if I don't have a product before right here? I would actually get an exception because I have an null reference, right? So this is where I should guard myself. Just like you did in the old one, you could have if statements right here throwing exceptions. And we'll do that for Wednesday. I'll show you how we can extend this, but I'll do it with test-driven development. So I want you guys to see it test-driven. So we'll do it next time. But notice right here, I'm just using some logic right here. I count up the times purchased with 1, and then I ask if there is a product after for this right here. If there is a product after, then I want to do something with it. And if there's not, then I want to delete it. Because if my write function right here, if there's nothing here, that must mean that the product has been deleted. That's what I expect. So then I can use my repository to delete the product, right? But if there is a product, I want to update. I want to set in the product repository, I want to update something. And right now, again, this is not perfect. I will make this so it's easier to see that what I'm actually updating is not the product. What I'm actually updating is the top products. Okay, so again, I have to extend and improve my code right here. That's up to you. You can do that yourself. I don't want to make it perfect because then you just copy my code and steal it forever and ever and don't do any work yourself. I know you won't. I'm just kidding. So we have the product ID. So we are going to use that to create a UID for the product. We're going to use a name. We're going to use a price, and we're going to just pretty much grab everything that I need from the product after, from the product ID, and from this times that I'm counting up right here. So I'm creating a new product right here, and I'm going to then set that in the product repository. Okay, let's try and jump to the product repository and see what that's all about. First of all, of course, there's an interface. And again, I have a set and a delete. That's what I need to have a product repository. Let's try and jump into the Firebase part right here. And you'll notice that I'm setting the product. That was the method I just called. And here is the Firestore specific information. That's why I call it this product repository Firebase. I could also call it Firestore instead to make it even more specific that I'm using Firestore. I could put in Azure if I wanted to make an Azure database instead and work with that. But this is my repository, so this is where I communicate with the database. It implements the product repository to kind of say I need a set method and I need a delete method. And then I made a small helper method right here to get admin Firestore. And then I can say this DB for getting admin Firestore, and then I can start calling this like you've done in Angular already. So it's kind of the same idea that you have an Angular that you can communicate. You have to put in first the document path right here for what you want to do. So with the document path right here, you can put in the product ID that I want to change, and then I can set it with the new product. And that's the code. That's how simple it actually is.